Democrat in the studio.
I know, we got another one.
I think he got lost and it was just cold outside. He's like, I need to come in.
State Senator Jeff Bridge is live in studio with us. This is going to be a fascinating conversation. Very grateful that you're here, joining Denver's Top Talk radio show, a right, left, center discussion show, because we need more of it. And this is important in the state. And he's running for state treasurer, I'm guessing, to not just represent progressives, but everybody.
Everybody.
Right? Yeah.
That's right.
So that's really looking forward to this conversation. You're not going to want to miss it. Now is time for the news.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good morning. 6 warm degrees outside. It's clear and cold, really cold in Denver. Expecting a high of 43 today after the sun rises. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, more than a dozen people across 5 states are dead as the brutal winter storm, which a lot of people think was engineered, slams much of the nation. Around 1 million customers, mostly in the South, were without electricity late Sunday as ice and freezing rain took their toll on power lines. The storm then moved into the Northeast, where widespread closures and delays are expected today. And once again, DIA will be slow today with plenty of delays. So make sure you check it out before you head out there and make sure you allow plenty of time. Alex Preddy was fatally shot by a Border Patrol officer Saturday in Minneapolis, the second fatal shooting in the Twin Cities by federal officers this month, sparking protests. The administration says that it was justified. Now, some Democratic senators say they won't be voting for a $1.2 trillion funding package this week if it includes money for DHS. So here we go, time for politics. DHS promising an investigation after ICE agents in Colorado reportedly left playing cards in vehicles after several arrests.
An immigrant rights group says the agents arrested multiple people during traffic stops in Eagle County last week. The playing cards were allegedly found in several of the vehicles left behind after the arrests. Each card was imprinted with an ace of spades, had the ICE Denver field office listed at the top, and included the address and phone number of the Aurora, Colorado ICE detention center at the bottom. Critics of the cards called them threatening and racist, while a DHS spokesperson condemned their use and promised swift action against those involved. I'm Michael Kastner.
Okay, I'm lost on that one. No, I'm sorry. I do not understand that previous story, but maybe I'll play it later in a couple hours. AFC Championship game, the snow really arrived in the second half at Mile High Stadium. It was all about field position and taking time off the clock. One of the huge plays of the game, 1:57 to go. Broncos down 10-7. Tough footing, 3rd and 3 for the Patriots. Broncos need a stop.
No safety deep. Oh, here he goes. He can try to beat him with his legs. As Ellis runs after him, and May got there. Drake May outraces the defender.
First down run by the quarterback, Drake May. Couple plays that may have been the difference. Broncos go for it in the second quarter on 4th and 1 from the Patriots 14 instead of kicking the field goal and getting almost assured points. Here's head coach Sean Payton.
Well, we ended up in a 6-1 front. They ended up playing in a heavy 6-1. There was a clock stoppage, so we had a nickel run called. And then I don't know if there was a timeout or they called one, but, it's a slipper naked that we've run pretty well. They played a 6-1 front with a kind of a 2-deep shell, so the run look was going to be, hindsight, the initial sub-run thought was a better decision.
Hey, they thought they could gain some momentum and build on the lead.
I'm sorry, Blake. This is my sixth grade brain.
Slip naked.
Yeah, but I hear slipper naked. I'm like, wow, really? That's all of a sudden my sixth grade brain goes. I'm like, that's why again I would not be of any help at any point in time if I was a professional football player and those would play calls like, guys, we're gonna do the slipper naked, and I'm like, shut up, Thorpe. Stop laughing. That would be the problem. I'd get kicked out of the huddle for being a doofus. Yeah,
that is funny. Slip screen or a naked bootleg. I'm sure.
Like,
yeah,
like, shut up,
that
Thorpe.
is hilarious.
Yeah, I just giggled the entire time like an idiot.
I was hoping you'd say something about that. Definitely,
dude. Yeah, I know.
You were there, and
I was.
That wasn't the one that really deflated the crowd.
No,
it
wasn't. It was that right before halftime. It's where again, Stidham panics and he throws the ball. He should have made the first pass. Or he just should have thrown out of bounds. And it's one of those things that if you're a starter, you make that mistake normally once or twice inside of a game, and you get it out of your system and realize what you have to do. And Bo Nix made the mistake. Drake May made the mistake when he was a rookie. So everyone makes that mistake, but it's because of lack of snaps. And it was that right before the end of the first half that really took a lot of the wind out of the stadium. That was a tough one because the weather started to change. And a lot of people were like, ooh, what are the chances now, given the conditions, that we're going to be able to put another 7, 10, 15, on the board, depending on, is it just field goals? Is it? Yeah. So, it was a tough one. But, we lost fair and square.
Experienced it. Yeah.
Again, we talked about FOMO. That's it. I am glad that I am there. I am going to be able to, with the grandkids go, come here and sit on my lap, and let me tell you about the time that Daddy, the Daddy and Grandpa went to the game and sat freezing or took us off. And they're like, you weren't smart enough to go inside. Shut up.
That's when they allowed snow to fall on football games.
Yes.
What do you mean they didn't always play indoors in Denver?
They didn't always. There was outside. Yes, there was outside. We used to sit in the weather and like it. Okay, we didn't like it, but we did it.
Exactly.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Oh man,
boy.
I'm glad you enjoyed the experience, but the loss tough for Bronco fans. 10-7 the final. Who will the Broncos take on? The Patriots take on, that is.
Done a great job. Third down here over the middle. Cooper Kupp. It's in! Touchdown, Seahawks!
Former Ram Cooper Kupp scores on his old team. Sam Darnold, 346 yards, 3 touchdowns, and the Rams were great, but the Seahawks were greater, and they head to Super Bowl 60. Nuggets and the Grizzlies postponed last night because of the ice and snow. Avs over the Maple Leafs 4-1. 5 in Centennial, 4 in Westminster, 6 in Denver. You're waking up with Jeff and Bill on a Monday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 KNUS forecast is early Monday. Clear and chilly this morning. Temperatures right around 10 above as you start the day. A nice warm up on the way this afternoon with sunshine, highs in the upper 40s. A few clouds tonight, lows in the lower 20s. We'll see sunny for Tuesday and Wednesday with highs in the upper 40s. Weather brought to you by L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. That's bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. I'm day weather meteorologist Patrice Sutter in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, honored to have him live in studio with us. If you go to youtube.com/710KNUS/live, you can see his smiling face. Jeff Bridges. Now, that name carries some weight because there's an actor out there named Jeff Bridges. So you're regularly
I'm a dude, not
that.
the dude. No, I have
talk about a Halloween costume.
I have the Twitter. I'm at Jeff Bridges.
Do you have that?
I do. So I used to, before I was elected, I would reply to all of the mistweets with quotes from The Big Lebowski.
Excellent.
I figured after I got elected, it's a little.
I think you should do it even more after getting elected. It seems much better afterwards.
He currently serves as a state senator and is the chair of the powerful Joint Budget Committee, which oversees the budget that will then be voted upon by both the House and the Senate, then heads to the governor. So he's negotiating with the governor on how to spend your tax dollars, and he's running for state treasurer. This will be his first statewide seat. And he joins us live in studio. Glad to have you here. Thank you,
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah,
happy
thanks
to
for
be
braving
here.
the snow. Appreciate it.
Introduce yourself first. Give people a sense of where you're from, your background, your education.
Yeah, grew up here close to this studio, actually. Went to Arapahoe High School and graduated from there. Went off to college, worked on a number of different campaigns across the country, handled military and small business policy for Ken Salazar. And I have a master's degree in divinity. So unique qualification for a member of the legislature, and then also on the budget committee, right? So
does this make you a Christian nationalist? Is that what you are?
Absolutely not.
No,
definitely
but aren't you bringing your faith and values into?
Yeah. Well, Christian nationalist carries a whole lot of weight that I don't think applies to how I look at the world. But yes, I am Christian, and yes, I am elected. Interestingly, the only other person with a master's of divinity in the legislature is also a Democrat in the House, the Speaker Pro Tem Andrew Basenecker. So, being on the budget committee, having that master's of divinity, people ask, what is that? How does that work? And I'd say that the budget is a moral document that puts in black and white, dollars and cents, exactly what we value and how much we value it. And then running for treasurer, I think the same applies to that office as well, because where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
There you go. Jeff Bridges running for state treasurer. Now, you're in a primary, so I want to talk first about Democrat opponents that you may have, folks like Breonna Tattone, but then also Kevin Grantham, maybe shaping up to be
and
your
his mustache.
Opponent.
Don't forget the mustache.
Right. Kevin was live in that seat about 2 weeks ago. So we heard from him. Tell us why you're the best person versus both Democrats and Republicans to serve in that seat.
So we have a real challenge right now fiscally with what it is we're able to do as a state because of the restraints on our budget. And so we have an affordability crisis here in Colorado. The cost of living is too high, and we don't have the resources in our state budget to solve it. Certainly Washington is not coming in to save the day, but we have all sorts of dollars that we invest every day from the state treasury. We have billions of dollars. The treasurer is essentially the chief investment officer for the state of Colorado. And what I want to do is take a different approach to how it is that we manage those investments. Instead of Wall Street companies, which is mostly where they are now, I want to invest in Colorado companies. Instead of treasury bonds from Washington, I want to buy bonds from cities and counties here in Colorado that are building the infrastructure we need to attract and keep good paying jobs here in the state. And then instead of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and this is the thing that just gets me the most, we're helping folks in like Florida and Texas and California own homes. We have a housing crisis here in Colorado. We should be investing in housing here in the state that working folks like nurses, teachers, and firefighters can actually afford.
Is that the right role of a treasurer? In my research of the treasurer's office, this thing has expanded in its scope, and most people would think a treasurer is a bit like a CFO or an accountant in the sense that we just want the books balanced. Is it the right role for a treasurer to come in and pick and choose where we make investments?
I think absolutely that is something that you're elected by the people of Colorado. I think your job is to make sure that you're responding to the concerns that they have. And as I travel the state, most people don't want to talk about bond yields. I meet teachers who can't afford to live in the district where they work. Same for firefighters, same for police, right? I meet parents whose kids are leaving the state because they can't afford to live here. And I think it is the job of every elected official to be addressing those challenges and solving those challenges, especially given the affordability crisis we have here in the state and the lack of resources in the overall budget. So I look at this, and of course, the first and most important responsibility is that when the government writes a check, it doesn't bounce, right? That is the liquidity in that, the security of those investments, obviously the number one priority. But we can still get those same returns. We can still do that same work by investing here in our state, not just in those national federal investment vehicles, right?
People are concerned about the direction of the state, as you just raised, particularly with affordability and taxes. Democrats have been in control for nearly a decade at this point. So who's to blame? I mean, isn't it the Democrats?
I think that the challenge in Colorado for affordability is unique. It is, especially on housing, it is a bigger affordability challenge than you see across the country, but cost of living is a challenge that folks everywhere in America are facing right now. This is a challenge that different states have stepped up to address in different ways. So Nevada and Vermont, the treasurers there have a housing affordability fund. So this is a path that is being walked. This isn't an entirely new direction for a state treasurer. I think the affordability crisis is something that has been caused in large part by national forces, and we are doing our best here in the state to push back against them and to ensure that our state has those homes that folks can afford when they're working in middle-income jobs.
What I've found with Democrats, and I often position myself as the Republican that talks to Democrats more than any other Republican in the state, because I have a 4-hour daily show where they call in and then I go out to their protests. So I'm learning to understand the Democrat mind. There's this kind of undying belief that if we just had another government program, it would solve the problems that we're facing. Why not just give the money back to the people? Why adjust TABOR? I saw you in the Denver Post last night. You want to reduce the impact of TABOR. You can respond to that. But it seems like it's just give the government more money and we'll somehow fix this problem. Why not just give the money back to the people?
You know, there's a place where I would absolutely agree with you that we have government regulations that are getting in the way in many ways of that housing affordability. There's a book out called Abundance that IDs exactly this challenge, right? That in some of our bluest areas in the country, they are the hardest places in the country for working folks to actually live. I think Abundance has a lot of good solutions in there, and I think through a lot of really good intentions, there have been all sorts of restrictions and policies and all sorts of roadblocks that have been created to just building, right? When Texas is building more renewable energy than Colorado, clearly something is broken in the policies that govern the development of these projects. So we look around at the state level. One of the things that we did is we addressed housing by looking at some of the roadblocks that local governments have put on to housing and removed some of those, left some others in place. 203 was a huge challenge that failed, and then the governor came back. And I think through that work, we have seen the beginnings of some policies that will result in more homes being built around the state. But as I talk to developers, one of the biggest challenges they say they have right now, in addition to some of those local policy challenges, is the cost of capital. It is just the interest rates are too high. They can't afford to build. The project doesn't pencil. If we can figure out a way to reduce those rates, then we'll see a lot more homes being built that, again, working folks like nurses, teachers, and firefighters can actually afford.
That's State Senator Jeff Bridges. He serves as the chair of the Joint Budget Committee. He's also running to be your next state treasurer. But you talked a lot about regulations. I appreciate that. I want to get rid of regulations. But what about spending? Isn't the government budget ballooning by some measures nearly 67% in 8 years? So it seems like you guys have more money than ever. So talk to us about the budget. And then now you're having to cut back and cut back and cut back. And people are frustrated about the services. And then give us your take on TABOR as well, please.
Sure. I didn't want to correct you first out. I am vice chair of the Joint Budget Committee now.
Oh, I thought
You've
were
said
the
it
chair.
3 times now. I figured I should.
Yeah,
no,
that's
I was
a
chair.
mistake. You were chair.
Yeah, so the...
No, wait,
okay.
is the chair listening? Because if they're not, just take the title.
That's my mistake.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I think it may still be on. I may need to update the website.
Okay.
So Emily Sirota is now the chair. She's in the House.
Gotcha.
The
Thank
chair
you
and the
for
vice
that.
chair flips between the House and the Senate every year. chair. So I was chair last year, I'm vice chair this year, still the ranking member from the lead member from the Senate. But yeah, just sorry, I am vice chair of the joint budget, of the powerful joint budget
We're
committee.
both seminarians. We want the truth here.
That's right. That's right.
But talk to us about spending. Sure. You guys, it's ballooned a lot, and give us a sense of where you stand on TABOR.
One of the biggest challenges that we face with TABOR is that this rationing limit sounds reasonable, right? I'm not talking about anything about voting on tax increases or removing that, right? When I talk about the challenge I see in TABOR, the biggest one I see is this rationing limit that is inflation plus population. And it sounds super reasonable, right? We're on video, so I can actually use my hands to describe this. So if you have inflation plus population here, right, and it looks like an increasing curve, and it sounds reasonable because you're like, well, just do the same thing next year as you did the year before, and your costs should go up by roughly inflation. It allows you to just continue providing the same services, and if you want to do more, go ask the people for more money somehow, right? Here's the challenge. A third of our budget is Medicaid, and medical costs go up way faster than inflation. A third of our budget is K-12. 90% of K-12 is wages. Wage growth goes up way faster than inflation. 10% of our budget is corrections. Almost all of corrections is wages. And again, wage growth goes up faster than inflation. The cost of construction materials for roads and bridges, concrete, steel, those things, the cost goes up faster than inflation. So the costs that we bear as a government go up much faster than this rationing limit imposed by TABOR, which means that year over year we are effectively cutting the services that we provide. So this year it's about $1 billion in cuts. Last year was about $1 billion in cuts. Next year it'll be about $1 billion in cuts. The total number in the budget will continue to go up, but the amount of services that we're able to provide will go down by about $1 billion every single year, and in ways that the Coloradans more and more are going to actually feel in their day-to-day lives.
That's Jeff Bridges, vice chair of the powerful Joint Budget Committee, running for state treasurer. That seems to affirm Margaret Thatcher's old adage that socialism's great until eventually you run out of other people's money. It's this notion that when we hand a service to the government, it gets more expensive. Thomas Sowell talks about this, like naturally, in part because there's the cost isn't directly associated to a person having to pay money, so more people use it. So when you hand something to the government, more people end up using it. The transparency isn't there, and so costs get added into it with regards to the management, and so the service ends up costing more. People use it more, so it just expands, and then eventually you just don't have the money to run it. Why is it the role of the government to provide all this? You're a man of faith. You believe in charity. You believe in people stepping up. Yet we continue to jump back to this notion that this is a service the government needs to provide. Your sponsor.
First of all, on the idea that just because it's in the government that the admin is more expensive, I think healthcare is a great example of how that's actually not the case. Our admin costs in Medicaid are significantly below admin costs in private insurance carriers. And so that's, I think, just one example of sometimes the government, for whatever reason, is able to more efficiently provide certain services. And I do think, though, there's a question about Medicaid and what are the services we provide. Should this be one of the most generous healthcare plans in the state, or should it not be? One of the biggest challenges in Medicaid is that 6% of the people on Medicaid account for 40% of the costs. Those are folks with long-term disabilities. It's older folks in nursing homes. They are the bulk of the cost in Medicaid. It's not your healthy folks who are getting their annual checkup and occasionally get sick or break their arm or something like that that is the source of those costs. And so that's a population that really doesn't get coverage any other way. That's not something that private insurance does. And so we are that provider of last resort. I don't think generally the government should step into well-functioning markets and take over and provide those services. But I did just want to push back on that initial piece on it's always less efficient if the government does it.
Yeah,
it can be, and you know, I don't know. I haven't read any studies about percentage-wise whether it is or not, but certainly in healthcare we have lower overhead than private insurance.
Do you think illegal immigrants should be receiving taxpayer-funded healthcare in this state?
What we have right now is that kids, the current Cover All Coloradans program that we have is that young people get coverage here in this state, and pregnant moms get coverage here in this state. And I think that from a moral perspective, these kids didn't come here on their own. Most of, maybe when you're getting into the older, like 16, maybe some of those kids came here on their own. But most of those folks, they didn't make the decision to be here. And do you think that they should? Do you think that they shouldn't have some sort of care, some sort of health care while they're here when bad things happen, like they break their arms, when they get colds? I think the question is that 6%, right? Kids with severe intellectual and developmental disabilities. Do we have a responsibility to provide the same level of service to those kids? And I think that's where the questions get a lot more difficult. But when we're talking about kids breaking their arms and getting sick, they're going to go to hospitals and they're going to get care anyway. So the question is, do we push those folks to essentially uninsured care at hospitals that is then paid for by you and me, by people with insurance, because hospitals, they can't just create money, and the way that they pay for folks who show up without insurance is they increase what they charge to people with insurance. So do we want to essentially increase costs for you and me across the board by not having some kind of care for these folks through Medicaid so that they can see a primary care person before they go to the ER? Or do we want a cost shift? And I think it makes more financial sense, and it is frankly the more moral thing to do to provide them with that basic coverage in Medicaid.
That's Jeff Bridges, state senator running for Colorado State Treasurer. Billy, I want to give you a chance to jump in here because we only have a few minutes.
Yeah, I know we got a few minutes.
State senator here.
Yes, one of the things that you talked about for a second was the idea of regulations and spending, and the idea that part of the constraint on the budget is the fact that wage growth, growth of raw materials, outpaces that of inflation. Knowing that, why does the state legislature then continue to find additional programs to spend on? One of the things I will give as an example, not a great one, but I think it works for the conversation, is the Native American something or another that's going out near the airport. If we are constrained and know that money is going to not necessarily meet the levels of spend that we had last year, why are we searching for additional places to spend money if we're already under that budgetary constraint?
Great question, and one that my colleagues have as they are running bills that will inevitably cost money this year.
All the time.
They do it every year. And every year we do provide some amount of funds for those bills. This is don't tell my colleagues this one. Here's the big secret. We set aside, I think, maybe $10 million for their bills last year. $10 million is like 2 votes on the budget committee. We're talking about a $16.5 billion general fund. And so the new programs that you see created are really tiny in comparison to the overall budget. And when we look at spending over the last few years, there was a great report from Amanda Bickle, who is an analyst on the budget committee, who looked at the growth that we've had over the last few years, in particular through the ARPA dollars, the pandemic recovery dollars. And a lot of the increases that we made were not to new programs. They were increases on existing programs. They were payments to Medicaid providers. The charge to increase that one, by the way, led by Republican Barb Kirkmeyer. And so that was not Democrats out of control on most of those. That was her sticking point for many years in the budget committee, has been ensuring that we increase those rates. It was increases in investment in housing affordability. And it's stuff that generally, if you look at it, you'd say, oh, that's reasonable. Of course you should do that. The challenge we have, again, is just that we are at that TABOR rationing limit and our costs grow faster. And so when I talk about what you read in the Denver Post was me saying, I think we should have some of the best schools in the country. And we have excellent schools considering that we are bottom half, depending on how you count, bottom 10 in how it is that we fund our public schools here in the state. And without raising taxes a penny, just keeping the money that we already bring in, raising that rationing limit by what it is that we invest in K-12, we can be in the top 10 nationally. I think that's where Coloradans want to be. And TABOR says, if you want to do this, if you want to raise the rationing limit, like Bill Owens did with Ref C, you have to go and ask the people. And so I think that the people of Colorado will say, we want schools of this quality. We are willing to invest in it. and without raising our taxes, go ahead, raise that rationing limit, and make our schools top 10 in the country.
Yeah, I can see that. There would be, I wish at times, and this is just for a totally different day, that it would also be a conversation in trade-offs, and the idea that if this, then that. But that's for a different day. One of the questions I've got that really kind of sticks in my craw for a long time has been some of the single allocation of money under COVID was used to set up long-term programs. And no, you're shaking your head.
Nope.
No. So all of the money that was allocated for COVID did not start programs that would need funding continually. They were all just one-time spend, because that is not the impression I've been given by either Democrats or Republicans inside the legislature, that money was used to set up programs that will need additional funding year after year.
There is a Colorado Sun article on this that is excellent. I'd refer you to, and again to that a review by Amanda Bickle, our JBC analyst, who looked at the spending during COVID. There is an exception. I won't say all. There are some programs that were new that were set up that were used, the COVID dollars are used to fund those. The biggest one being the Behavioral Health Administration. That was about $10 to $20 million a year that we knew we were going to have to find somewhere after those one-time dollars ran out. That's really the only one. And when you're facing a $1 billion budget shortfall, $10 to $20 million is not the reason that we are facing a $1 billion shortfall.
But let me interrupt there just for a sec. But if we know that shortfall is coming, it didn't just surprise happen, is it smart to take that one-time money to start a long-term program? That's the issue is functionally going through that budgetary process. If we already know that we're operating out of a hole, why in the heck do you take one-time money, even if it's a small spend? And the idea, if my budget was going south, and even though maybe that country club membership or even my Netflix membership is going to be a long-term spend, even if it is only a little bit of money and it breaks or hurts my budget, it is a dumb thing to do. So why do it?
First of all, it's not Netflix or a country club membership. But good for you that that's in your budget. We don't really have an entertainment budget.
I just want to be able to have the extra money to spend at one time. I'm looking for the large yes of the government.
Dude, you're in radio.
Pour it on me.
That's never coming.
Definitely. No, Netflix is definitely in my budget. Country club is not.
I'm stealing your password, just saying publicly.
So, what we have in the budget is not nice to have. There's no Dave Matthews concert line item in the state budget. I wish there were. We would eliminate it. We did find a couple of these last year. We were spending $500,000 a year helping marijuana companies become more energy efficient. Now, I love energy efficiency, but is that the role of the state government to be helping these companies be? No, I definitely not. We cut that program. There's not a lot like that. And so when you look at the one-time program, the only real example of a one-time spend that led to ongoing obligations was the Behavioral Health Administration. We have a behavioral health crisis in this state. We said this is a priority, and we're going to find other things to cut moving forward in order to keep this one going. And that was just a decision that we made when that was stood up. And I'll also say part of why we stood it up was an assumption there could be some cost savings by aligning the various different programs that were, maybe in the Department of Human Services, there were maybe in Medicaid, HCPF, that we could bring them together and find some cost savings by having a single route for folks who needed those behavioral health care services. So we did know there was an ongoing spend. We thought there would be some ongoing savings. I think we haven't realized those yet. And I think this year we will start to realize those because of some programs that have been put into place, BASOs anyway. We can, I don't want to use too many acronyms, but there are things being put in place that I think will show some of those savings. But that was really the reason that we have the challenges that we do, the reason we have to cut $1 billion from the budget is really not that we used one-time dollars for ongoing obligations. It's that TABOR rationing limit simply doesn't keep up with the costs that we have as a state.
That's State Senator Jeff Bridges, running to be Colorado State Treasurer, joining us live in studio. He serves as the Vice Chair of the Joint Budget Committee. He's waving the camera. You can see him at youtube.com/710KNUS. Senator, you've been very generous with your time. Just a few more questions. People are raising concerns about state lawmakers benefiting from NGOs that they either work for, that are receiving state funds. Is that something that concerns you at all?
Who's raising? I have these concerns have not been raised to me. What
folks like Lorena Garcia, that their NGOs may be receiving funding from the state, and then that's benefiting their salaries.
I have not heard of this. I don't know what you're talking. No one has raised those concerns to me.
Or about any lawmakers working for NGOs that receive state funds.
Again, you're the first person to bring this up. I will look into it. Send me some stuff to read about it, and I'll send you my reaction to it. But you're the first one. Congratulations.
Hey, you did it first.
There you go.
Good job, Jeff.
There
Nicely
you
done.
go. We've all got kids in our families that seem to spend more than other kids do and want to come to us. And in many ways, you serve as that kind of parent to your fellow lawmakers that go, no, we can't spend money on that. Is there anyone out there in particular that seems to have a propensity to want to ask for more for their projects?
You want me to name names?
I would like, you want
It'd
me
be
to
great for our show. It might not be good for your career, but it'd be great for our show.
There are members who come with large requests every year. They know who they are, and they know that they're going to get no's. But yeah, that is my job is to tell people this seems like a great idea. We don't have the money. Try it.
Much like Jeff's kids and my kids asking for an allowance raise.
Yeah, you're much nicer to say this may sound like a great idea.
Yes. It's a wonderful PowerPoint.
Sometimes
but
it's a terrible idea, and the cost is how we get to kill it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is the power of the purse. Final question, just with regards to the Democrat Party. I had Deep Singh Badesha sit right here, Democrat Socialist.
You had
America.
Deep here?
Deep was my co-host. He's been my co-host
a number
now
of times.
twice.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
For all 4 hours, and he took calls and debated people. It was a lot of fun.
He's got a podcast too. Maybe he was just trying to bump his numbers.
Up in the
Good for
attic,
him.
Left in the Attic, I think is the name of it. But
Left in the Attic.
It seems like you're dealing with a split in the Democrat Party. You have people that are proudly embracing the socialist moniker. Are you a socialist? Do you see the Democrat Party going more socialist?
Democratic Party has always been a big tent party. And I think one of the tragedies, frankly, of the last few years has been that there have been folks in the party that have tried to narrow that tent, that have said, you're not a real Democrat. You're not welcome in our party unless you have these particular policy ideas, right? Unless you agree with us on these things. I'd also say that there is a mistake in the legislature made by some of my colleagues where they mistake sort of where you are on policy with your willingness to work with people, right? And passing bills requires that you work with people, that you listen to people. I am always willing to amend my bill in a way that changes perhaps how I accomplish my goal, as long as I can still accomplish my goal. There are other folks who say it is my way, it is exactly this way, and no other way will suffice. Those people generally don't pass very much legislation. But they mistake often the willingness to work with some sort of softness on ideology, right? And I am just so dedicated to improving the lives of Coloradans that I will work with anyone on anything to try and make sure that we are moving the needle, because no matter how good the bill is, if it doesn't pass, it hasn't made a lick of difference for the people of our state. That's
State Senator Jeff Bridges. Just to be clear on that, not a socialist.
Not a socialist.
Not a socialist. All right. He is a dude. And he's a cool dude for wanting to come sit in and be a part of the Jeff and Bill show, which we sure appreciate.
Had a great time. As a beverage present.
Not at this hour. You had an evening show, maybe.
State Senator, thank you very much. Let me point people to your website, bridgesforcolorado.com. Bridgesforcolorado.com if you want to learn more about Jeff Bridges. Go ahead, sir,
Real
please.
quick, my cell phone number is on there. I put it on every piece of lit that I send out. Anyone who wants to call or text, 303-358-5551 is my cell. Go right ahead.
There you go. That's dangerous.
That's very dangerous. Especially on this show.
Believe me, it's the amount of someone who deals with comments. I had a video yesterday of my wife walking our horse into the barn in the snowstorm, and the comments, Jeff, why weren't you the one doing it? It's funny. You open yourself up to that. All right, State Senator Jeff Bridges, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We will be right back. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Great conversation with State Senator Jeff Bridges, a Democrat, running for the Democrat nomination for state treasurer. And he serves as the vice chair of the Joint Budget Committee. Basically, he's the guy in charge from the Senate side, working together with the House to figure out what the state budget is going to be. And so if you think we're spending too much money, if you think our taxes are too high, well, he's the guy. And he basically made the case for adjusting TABOR to raise the caps so the state can keep more of your money, tax you more, build more programs. And that's where he and I would disagree. I think they're inefficient. I think that they become boons of special interests that that ultimately don't deliver the care that needs to, whether it's healthcare or education. We just continue to throw more and more money into it with the hopes that at some point it's finally going to click over and things are going to get better. It's the opposite of investment. Typically with investment, you throw a little money into something, see if it's promising, and then you do more money for greater return. With the government, it's the exact opposite. It fails. We know our schools are not performing. We know our healthcare is not performing. And it's this belief that if we just added more money to it, then things would change. That's a fundamental disagreement. But I appreciate him being in here. Great conversation. And we want more Democrats a part of this show. I will say that as a conservative.
Yes.
I want more Democrats on this show because, as you guys know, Charlie Kirk was a good personal friend of mine who believed that things get very bad when we stop talking. And that's what's happening in Minneapolis right now. So I want Democrats to always feel they can come on the show. They're going to be treated respectfully. We're going to disagree, but I appreciate them coming on. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Richard Littleton. Good morning, Richard. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, morning.
Good morning. I'm glad to speak with you. I love listening to both of you. I would say that there are a couple of things that are the challenging points with folks like the senator is the way that they frame things, and then the way they frame things now and the way they frame history. For example, in the educational structure, he was talking about if we want to be number one in education, we need to put more money into it. Well, the framing is wrong. More money doesn't buy better education. There are people that are educated for 10 cents on the dollar in other cities and other countries that do better in math, science, education, AI, everything, manufacturing, engineering, for 10 cents on the dollar. So money is not the framework that makes you do better. In the U.S., we had, actually in Colorado, 15 years ago, we had about 7.5 administrators per 100 teachers. Now we have about 11.5 administrators per 100 teachers. The average administrator makes about $112,000. The average teacher makes about $56,000. So when you add administrators, you're not adding more teaching. You're not adding more benefit directly to the student. And when we add more classes that are teaching other things, and you could argue that they're woke educational things, and we're leaving out STEM and what have you. I'm huge in supporting the arts. I think music and art are extraordinarily important in building strong students. But we teach the wrong things, and when we don't teach the right way, that's the reason we're at where we are. It's not because of money. So I would say that's one, is the framing. And medicine is kind of the same way. We do have the best medicine in the world. And I travel, I don't know, 15 or 18 countries a year. And we do have the best medicine in the year. But for the cost, we're probably 5 times more expensive than we should be, even for the best medicine in the world. And that's because of the bureaucracy that exists in the middle.
Now, Richard, I got a question for you. Something about, the education and the budget. I can see what you mean by expansion of the administrators. And you're right. There has been an expansion of administrators in basically inside the cities. But when we get into the rural areas, cost is somewhat of an issue. And what I mean by that is places like, Eagle, Rickery, Vale, they have problems keeping teachers. Some because out on the Eastern Plains, it's difficult to persuade a teacher based on the salary to move out there and start their educational career. And then in places like, Summit County, Eagle County, Grand County, it's difficult to pay teachers enough in order to help them have an affordability issue. They can't afford to live inside of the towns in which they teach. So I would say that in some areas, you're right, based on in the cities, the explosion of the administrative state. But I think that money is somewhat of a problem, and funding. out on the eastern plains and in some of the mountains. But I hope, Richard, that you and I can agree that regardless of whether or not we agree or disagree on that point, we can agree that the legislature and how the educational budgets are structured are not concerned about solving that problem at all. They're not concerned about that, and they're not looking at that as part of a solution. Is that fair?
I would completely agree. And in a former life, I worked in emergency medicine, and I started out all through college. I worked as a paramedic, and I would work in rural counties during the week because we would only run 2 or 3 calls a day, and I could study. But the other reason I worked there is they paid a lot more. They paid because no one would go that far away. But I was willing to drive so that I could get 24 hours of study time in with a few calls ran. And the ER doctors, in general, got paid substantially more. But the difference was we had much less administration. So even in those instances, we had far fewer administration dollars being spent, and we had more of actual critical components that were funded. And I think that's probably the same way in the education space. If we paid teachers much more, and I'm one of those that's old school. I think teachers should be probably one of the 2 high, medicine and teaching, or probably should be the 2 highest paid people on the planet, because they impart such important pieces into our families. But we should also have the qualifications and create high standards so that people aspire to be in those positions. And I agree, in those rural areas, they should be paid a lot of money to take on those jobs.
Richard Littleton, sure appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Richard,
we'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Great conversation with Jeff Bridges, state senator, vice chair of the powerful Joint Budget Committee, talking about running for state treasurer. So if you like what the state has done already with its budget, I guess he's the guy to put in the state treasurer. That was one thing that struck me. Was they have a lot of choices with regards to investments.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, now you're starting to act like, do I want the state making investment choices? I guess if you're Donald Trump, I don't mind it. But.
Well, the thing is, I kind of wouldn't mind it if it was Donald Trump sometimes, because you're not always picking winners. So the thing that I've got is this is what I find problematic is in things like budgetary items, pension items. Those, in theory, should be very safe investments. But we saw through the mortgage crisis what happens when we let banks go start to buy subprime mortgages.
Yeah, right.
And so when you allow institutions or organizations that are empowered with keeping a pool of money safe and secure, and yet they're allowed to take more risk with that, I think you get into a bad scenario. Remember, everybody always says, both in gambling and in the stock market, do not bet money you can't afford to lose.
Yep.
And if you're responsible for the state budget and you're responsible for the pension, there's a core of money you can't lose.
Not necessarily your money.
Oh, yeah.
Either,
I think we just went.